The paradox of the perfect memory. Imagine this. A historian alone in a candlelit chamber recalls every detail of history, not just what happened, but how it felt, sounded, smelled. Every bloodied battlefield, every whispered betrayal, every clink of a goblet in Julius Caesar's final supper. He remembers it all perfectly, too perfectly. Now imagine you are that historian, and your curse is that the past can never fade. Let's play a game. Try to remember the first time you realized something was wrong with the world. Not wrong like unfair politics or broken systems, truly wrong. A memory that felt like a crack in the sky, a glitch in your waking reality. Do you remember it clearly, or has it been smoothed by time? That's the paradox. Memory decays yet shapes identity. If your memories change, are you the same person? But if you remembered everything with flawless clarity, down to the breath, the blink, the blood, would you go mad? Studies show the human brain edits memory like a film editor, removing dead time, softening pain, smoothing contradictions. We don't remember things as they were, we remember them as we need to. But what if you couldn't forget? Consider hyperthymesia, a rare condition where people can recall every single day of their lives in vivid, emotional, even painful detail. Sounds like a superpower, right? Except they report mental exhaustion, emotional numbness, an inability to heal, because forgetting is how we survive. Now merge this with history. Suppose we could access a perfect record of the past, not just events, but every human sensation ever felt. Would we be overwhelmed? Could we ever progress, knowing the atrocities, betrayals, and horrors with absolute clarity? If every empire's collapse echoed in your bones, if every genocide replayed in your dreams, if every lie whispered by kings was screamed into your skull each night, would you still believe in progress, or would you live forever haunted by the corpse of certainty? But here's where it gets worse. If your memory of an event defines your perception of it, and someone else remembers it differently, who owns the truth? Now twist the knife. What if your most traumatic memory, the one you swore changed everything, never actually happened? A planted seed, a false echo, a shadow slipped into your mind through a whisper, a story, a history book. In 1974, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus proved how easy it is to implant false memories. People swore they got lost in malls they never visited, hugged Mickey Mouse at parks they'd never seen. The brain, eager to complete the narrative, fills in gaps with fiction, fiction that feels like truth. So if memory is fallible, how can history be trusted? How can you be trusted? You are a collage of memories edited by trauma, dopamine, narrative bias, and survival instinct. Your mind tells you what you need to know, not what actually happened. Every memory you hold dear could be a beautifully rendered lie, and yet you still cling to them, don't you? The warmth of a parent's hug, the sting of your first betrayal, the silence after a funeral. All of them might be illusions, but they're yours, right? So here's your trap. If you forget, you're lost. If you remember, you break. If you trust your memory, you lie. If you question it, you unravel. So, historian of your own mind, what truth will you write tonight? And what memories will you delete just to sleep? Or what if someone already did? Now let's go deeper. The next paradox waits in silence, ready to erase the very meaning of knowledge. The paradox of knowing too much. Close your eyes. Imagine holding the answer to everything, the true nature of consciousness, the final fate of the universe, the secret behind every war, every lie, every god. Now open your eyes. You're still here, still just not knowing, but what if, just what if, you did know? That's the trap. To know too much is to know too little. The moment you reach what feels like absolute knowledge, a deeper question arises, darker and hungrier. Every truth unfolds into more uncertainty. Let's begin. You're in a room with a button. Press it, and you'll receive the knowledge of the entire cosmos. Every answer to every question, decoded, instantly. But there's a warning etched into the wall. Once you know, you can never not know. You press it, and suddenly it's all there, everything. You understand the architecture of time, you grasp the origins of matter, You comprehend why love hurts, why gods are silent, why chaos is necessary. You know the final thought that will pass through the last dying brain in the universe, and it's horrifying, not because it's evil, but because it's empty. You realize this. The more you understand reality, the less human you remain. Knowledge expands beyond language, beyond feeling. You stop needing stories, metaphors, emotions. You stop needing hope, because hope is built on not knowing. It dies in certainty. And here's the twist. You can't go back. You now see people speaking in delusions, walking in loops of meaninglessness, smiling about purpose, ethics, gods, love, as if they matter in a collapsing simulation of entropy. You want to scream, but you don't, because you understand even that would be pointless. Think about it. Every major leap in science, quantum physics, cosmology, AI, has led us not to clarity, but to deeper confusion. We thought atoms were solid. Then we found they were mostly empty. Then we learned particles exist in probabilities, not positions. Then we found observation changes outcomes. Then we gave up trying to fully define reality. The smarter we become, the less we know. The deeper we dig, the more absurd the foundation. We thought knowledge was a tower, it's a spiral downward, and it leads not to godhood, but to madness. Now let's test this in your mind. Do you want to know how you'll die? Your brain says yes. Your instincts say no. What about the exact moment your last loved one will breathe? What about whether your life ever had meaning, cosmically speaking? Would you like to know how many lies you've told yourself just to survive? Today, would you want to know whether free will is an illusion, and your every decision was predetermined from the first atom's vibration? Would you really want to know, or are you beginning to see the paradox? Knowledge frees you, but only by removing the illusions that made freedom feel sweet. And now, let's get personal. Have you ever had that split-second moment where you knew something was wrong with the world, that the texture of your life didn't fit, that reality itself had glitched? You brushed it off, but that was the truth peeking through. That was knowing too much, and the mind in a panic shut the door. But what if you opened it again? What if right now the ground beneath your thoughts began to shift, because you realized this story, this paradox, this moment isn't something you're reading, it's something you're remembering, because deep inside, part of you already knew. So tell me, if you could know everything, would you press the button? And if you wouldn't, why are you still reading? The paradox of the self. Let me ask you something simple. Who are you? Not your name, not your job, not your history. Who are you right now, stripped of memory, roles, preferences, and flesh? Go on. Try to answer. The moment you speak, it slips away. That's the paradox. The self is the only thing you think you know, and yet you can never truly grasp it. The more you try to observe it, the more it evaporates. You are the observer trying to observe the observer. Let's begin. Picture yourself standing before a mirror. You stare at your reflection for long enough, and something strange begins to happen. Your face warps, the familiarity melts, the mind recoils. It's called the strange face illusion, a psychological phenomenon where, under low light and prolonged gaze, your face distorts into something alien, demonic, unrecognizable. Why? Because the brain doesn't see the self. It constructs the self, piece by piece, mask by mask. Every moment, your mind is editing, deleting, reinterpreting who you are to fit the narrative it needs to survive. You are not a core identity. You're an active hallucination, an internal simulation. Now think deeper. You say you are your memories, but memories fade. You say you are your thoughts, but thoughts shift. You say you are your body, but your cells regenerate. Your appearance changes, your desires evolve. So again, what is the constant? What remains when all else is removed? Many spiritual traditions call it the soul. Neuroscience calls it emergent consciousness. Philosophy calls it absurdity. Let's complicate this further. Your brain splits the world into two categories, self and not self. But even that's a lie. Your gut bacteria outnumber your human cells. Your thoughts are shaped by culture, language, memory, and trauma. Your emotions are reactions to chemical loops developed through evolution, not divine insight. Even your preferences, what food you like, who you love, what you fear, are echoes of things you didn't choose. So are you the one who wants? Or the puppet moved by wants? Do you remember the first time you felt shame, joy, terror? Did you choose those feelings? Or were they burned into your identity before you had a say? If you strip away every reaction, every bias, every memory, every desire, every scar, what's left? A ghost, a void, or maybe nothing at all? Now let's go darker. Split brain patients, people with their brain hemispheres surgically disconnected, can exhibit two distinct selves in one body. One hand buttons the shirt, the other unbuttons it. One eye reads the word laugh, but only half the brain knows why the mouth starts laughing. In these people, the unity of the self collapses. But what if that unity was always an illusion? What if you are not one being, but a colony of conflicting processes pretending to be one? You're not the voice in your head. You're the echo chamber. You're not the driver. You're the car thinking it's driving. You are not you. You are the sum of contradictions temporarily in agreement. Now imagine this. You wake up tomorrow with no memory, new language, new face, new body. But your emotions still surge. You still feel the weight of something. Are you still you? Or are you someone else entirely who thinks they're continuing a journey? This is the trap. The more you try to locate the self, the more it slips away, like chasing a shadow in fog. And yet, we build societies, laws, religions, punishments, and love, all on the belief that you exist as a single, constant you. What if that's the biggest delusion of all? What if every crime committed and was just a different self wearing your mask? What if every kindness you remember was someone else behind your eyes? And what if the voice asking these questions isn't even you anymore? So tell me, stranger, if you aren't you, then who is reading this right now? The paradox of the true lie. Let's begin with a simple sentence. This statement is false. Go ahead. Try to figure it out. If the statement is true, then it must be false. But if it's false, then it's actually true. And in that loop, you're trapped, a sentence that devours its own logic. But now let's leave abstract riddles behind and enter something more sinister, a lie that becomes true. You're walking through a city you've never visited before. A man on the corner yells, "They're watching you, don't believe the maps, the buildings move." You laugh, crazy talk. But then your phone glitches, your GPS spins, a street you just passed disappears. You walk in circles, you see the same woman with the red scarf 3 blocks apart, and suddenly you wonder if he was right. The lie whispered in paranoia has started to construct your reality. That's the paradox. A lie, believed completely, begins to shape the world into its own image. History is rewritten by the victors. That's not just a saying, it's a mechanism of power. If enough people believe a version of the past, it becomes truth. The real events rot in forgotten graves, while the lie gets marble statues. Take George Orwell's 1984. The Ministry of You. Truth doesn't just manipulate history, they delete it. They rewrite yesterday so that today makes sense, even if it never really happened. You've seen this in headlines, in textbooks, in your own family's stories. A lie, told often enough, becomes memory, and memory, as we said, becomes you. So if someone lied about who you were over and over, you might start to believe them, even if it hurt, even if it twisted you, even if it killed the version of you that once knew better. Let's go further. In psychology, this is known as gaslighting, a manipulation so complete that the victim begins to question their entire reality. The abuser says, "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're overreacting." And slowly you begin to doubt the truth, then your memory, then your emotions, until you only believe them. But here's the horror. Once you internalize that false narrative, you begin acting it out. You become what the lie said you were. You become the villain, the coward, the broken thing they said you'd be. And now the lie is real. What about society? Think of every scapegoated group in history, demonized, lied about, painted as monsters. Then those groups begin to shrink, to hide, to lash out, to fear, until their behavior seems to match the fear. A lie made true by force, by belief, by repetition, by survival. And now it's indistinguishable from truth. But wait, here's the deepest twist. What if you could never tell whether a thing was originally true or false? What if your memory of the lie had overwritten the truth so completely that both were just shadows? What if your entire personality, your values, your faith, your worldview was built on a lie you never questioned? Would you tear it all down? Or would you double down, call it your truth, and sink into comforting delusion? Because some lies are too old to kill, too useful, too beautiful. We say we want the truth, but we worship the lie. Now try this. Look at your favorite belief. The one you'd die for. The one you'd never surrender. Now imagine it was planted. Imagine it served someone else and you never even noticed. How would you prove it wasn't a lie? Could you? Would you even want to? Or would you lie to yourself? To protect the lie. That defines you. So here's your trap. When a lie becomes real, does the truth even matter anymore? The paradox of free will. You wake up, you stretch, yawn, choose coffee over tea, blue over black. You take a different route to work. You think, today I'm spontaneous, but what if you weren't? What if every choice you've ever made, every one, was the only choice you could have made? What if free will is nothing more than a well-dressed illusion, strutting confidently across a stage built by biology, past, and probability? That's the paradox. You feel free while living inside a script. Let's run a thought experiment. A man flips a coin. He calls heads, it lands on heads. Was that luck, chance, or was the outcome determined the moment his thumb flicked the metal? Now replace the coin with you. You decide to take a left turn. You believe it was your idea. But was it? Let's break it down. Your genetics determine your preferences. Your upbringing shapes your fears. Your past experiences influence your risk tolerance. The weather nudges your mood. A headline you saw yesterday, a smell you barely noticed this morning, a hormone shift in your bloodstream, all of it converging, calculating, compelling your choice. What part of that was you? Where is the chooser? Where is the freedom? Sam Harris, a neuroscientist and philosopher, argues, free will is a myth. You don't choose your thoughts, they arise. You don't choose your desires, they appear. You don't even choose to choose. By the time you think you've decided, your brain already has. MRI scans have shown that your brain begins preparing a decision several seconds before you're even aware of it. So what is this you taking credit? It's just a narrator, a voice in your head pretending it had control over the story written by forces it doesn't understand. Let's test it. Right now, decide to raise your left hand. Did you do it? Was that truly your choice, or was it a response to my challenge? Would you have done it if I hadn't asked? What about the way I phrased it, the timing, the weight of the word right now? Your free decision was sculpted, coerced, by a script I wrote seconds ago. And I'm just a voice on a screen, so who is really in charge? And here's where it gets cruel. If free will is an illusion, then so is guilt, so is pride, so is justice. How do you punish someone who had no choice? How do you forgive someone who couldn't have done differently? How do you praise yourself for triumphs that were predetermined? You can't, and yet you must. Because society collapses without the lie, even if it's a lie you now know. Let's spiral further. If you decide right now to reject this idea, to say, no, I am free, isn't that still just a reaction? A resistance born from identity, fear, or pride? What if every rejection of determinism was also predetermined? What if even your rebellion is part of the plan? You feel the walls closing in now, the idea tightening like a noose. There's no exit. Because even the desire for an exit was written before you got here. And yet, here's the cruel beauty. The illusion is necessary. Without it, life becomes unbearable. Without it, love becomes mechanical. Without it, you are a machine watching. It's self-decay, so you continue to pretend that your choices are yours, that your will is free, that you're the author of your own story, because if you don't, what's left? So answer this. If freedom is an illusion, are you still responsible for what you dream? The paradox of the present moment. Where are you right now? Don't say here, that's geography. Where are you in time? You might say the present, but that's the illusion, isn't it? Because the moment you try to grasp now, it's already gone. That's the paradox. The present does not exist. Let's slow this down. You are reading this sentence in the now, but by the time your eyes move to the next one, this one is already the past. The mind tries to stitch it all together into a smooth stream, but reality isn't smooth. It's jagged, fragmented, each frame of consciousness flickering like an old film reel. Neuroscience confirms this. Perception lags behind reality. Your brain is always operating with a delay, usually around 80 milliseconds. You never experience the world as it is, only as it was. So what you think is now is a reconstruction, a guess, a hallucination that's already too late. Let's go deeper. Imagine a ball is thrown at you. You dodge it. You think you reacted in the present, but physics says no. The ball was already mid-air before your brain processed the threat. The decision to move, made before you felt it. The now you think you live it is always just behind the event. You are always playing catch-up to a world that has already happened. Now think about memory. You remember the past. You imagine the future. But where is the present? You can't hold it. You can't pause it. You can't be in it, because the very act of being aware of the present pulls you into the past. And yet, it's the only thing you think is real. We mourn the past. We fear the future, but we're haunted by the fact that the present is unreachable. Here's the twist. In quantum physics, time isn't even fundamental. Some models suggest that what we experience as time is an emergent property born from entanglement, entropy, or information flow. In these models, the universe isn't ticking like a clock. It's already there, all of it. The past, the future, the moments you haven't lived yet. They already exist. You aren't moving through time. Time is a frozen landscape. And you are the illusion of movement. A needle dragging across a vinyl record while the song was already complete. What about déjà vu? That eerie sensation that you've lived this moment before. It's not proof of magic. It's proof of failure. A glitch in the brain's temporal model. A misfire that makes the present feel like a memory. But maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's a scar from a loop, from a moment that's repeating, because you were never meant to notice the edge of time fraying. Let's test it. Take a deep breath. Try to catch the present moment. Mark it. Hold it. You can't, because the moment you become aware of it, it's already memory. You exist in a delay. A life on tape. A playback of something you call now that never actually was. You are living inside echoes. So tell me, if the present is just a reconstruction, and the future already exists, and the past is warped by memory, then what part of time is actually real? Or is time just the cage that makes your illusion feel linear? The paradox of the observer. Look around. Everything you see exists because you're looking at it. But the moment you stop looking, what happens to it? Does it vanish, stay unchanged, or was it never there at all? That's the paradox. The act of observing changes what is observed. Let's start in the shadows of science. In quantum mechanics, there's a famous experiment, the double slit experiment. Fire a single electron at a barrier with two slits. You'd expect it to go through one or the other, right? But no, fire enough electrons and a pattern emerges. A pattern of interference, as if the single particle passed through both slits at once, interfering with itself. It behaves like a wave, like a ghost. But observe it. Place a detector to see which slit it goes through. Suddenly, the interference disappears. The electron picks a slit. It behaves like a particle. Just by watching, you change the outcome. Think about that. Reality, at its smallest, most fundamental level, doesn't behave consistently unless it's being watched. Before observation, particles exist in a superposition, a cloud of possibilities. After observation, they collapse into reality. So what does that mean? That unobserved reality is unreal, that the universe needs an observer to exist, that nothing is truly there unless you look. Then, what happens to everything behind you? Right now, behind. Your back, is your room still there, or is it frozen? Empty, undefined until you turn around. Let's dive further into madness. In 2002, a delayed choice quantum eraser experiment demonstrated that even future measurements could affect past outcomes. You read that right. The decision to observe or not observe a particle can retroactively determine how it behaved in the past, so time is not linear, causality is not sacred, and observation is everything. Now apply this to your life. Who are you when no one is looking? Not metaphorically, literally. Are you the same person when alone, when unobserved? Or do you collapse into nothing until you are seen? Does your identity exist in solitude or only when it's witnessed? Do you smile in mirrors because the self is reflected? Do you feel real only in crowds, in photos, on screens, and when you're forgotten? When no one says your name, when there's no gaze left to meet you, do you vanish? Here's the trap. The observer creates the observed, and you observe yourself. Then who's the real you? The one who sees or the one being seen? You might say both. But then who is observing that? Where does the loop end? The self watching the self watching the self. A hall of mirrors with no origin, and maybe no end. Think of God, an all-seeing eye, a perfect observer. What if belief in divine surveillance is not morality, but ontological necessity? If no one is watching, does the universe even bother to exist? Maybe we invented gods not to explain creation, but to make reality feel real. Because deep down we fear this, that we are dreams inside a sleeping eye, that once the eye closes, we cease. So tell me, observer, if seeing creates being, and you close your eyes right now, what disappears first, the world or you? The paradox of the ship of Theseus. A ship sails across centuries. Winds batter it, storms split its sails, planks rot and are replaced one by one, until eventually not a single original piece remains, and yet it's still called the ship of Theseus. But now ask, if you took all the removed pieces and rebuilt them into a new ship, which one is the real one? That's the paradox. If all parts are replaced, does the original still exist, or has it become a ghost? Let's bring it closer to home. Your body replaces 98% of its atoms every year. Your skin regenerates, your bones refresh, your brain rewires. Even your memories shift, and yet you still call yourself me. Are you, or are you a ship with a name slapped on its changing frame? Where do you begin and end? Imagine this: a man dies, but every cell in his body is perfectly replicated, his memories transferred, his voice indistinguishable. He wakes up and says, "I'm still me." But the original is gone. Is this man truly the same, or just a copy with confidence? And now imagine you are that copy. Would you know? Would you care? What if you already are? Let's twist the knife. In neuroscience, there's no single point where you exist. There's no soul tucked away, just neurons firing, circuits buzzing, chemical storms mimicking the symphony of consciousness. A body becomes a person by remembering its own song. But if another body sings it, is it still you? Cloning, teleportation, AI, memory upload, all of it comes back to this. If we replicate, say, a person perfectly, is the copy the same? Teleportation machines in sci-fi often work by destroying the original and building a copy elsewhere. The new person steps out, smiles, lives on, but the original disintegrated. Is that murder or just continuity? Would you step inside that machine? Are you sure? Because here's the trap. If continuity is an illusion, then identity is a lie. You're not a river. You're a collage of replaced parts stitched by memory, pretending to be one stream, and maybe the self doesn't persist. Maybe it reboots. Every morning, every breath, every thought. Now look at your past. Are you the child you once were? You remember them, but you don't think like them, feel like them. Even your values are different. Would that child recognize you? Would they like you? Would they say, yes, this is still me? Or would they mourn you like a stranger wearing their skin? So here's the core. If identity is memory, and memory can be altered, if the body is replaced, and you still claim it's you, then who are you really? The name, the story, or the lie that makes all these pieces feel whole? So answer this. If you vanished tonight and a perfect replica took your place, would anyone notice? More importantly, would you? The paradox of the known unknown. How much do you know? Think of all the facts stored in your mind, your name, your country, your past, the laws of nature, basic math, your beliefs about death, about love, about reality. But now pause, ask yourself, how much of what I know is actually true? And then ask something worse, how much do I not even know that I don't know? That's the paradox. The more you know, the more you realize what you can't know. Let's step into the void. In 2002, Donald Rumsfeld famously said, "There are known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns." It was mocked, but philosophers heard the echo of something ancient, something terrifying, because hidden in that awkward phrasing is a truth sharp enough to cut the soul. There are things you know. There are things you know you don't know. And there are things you don't even realize you don't know. But here's the horror. The last category is infinite. Your mind is a flashlight in a void. What you know is the small circle of light. But the darkness isn't passive. It's shifting. It's watching. And just when you think you've understood one edge of reality, another part changes shape. Think about it. How much of your day is built on assumptions? That your food is safe, that the floor beneath you won't vanish, that gravity will still pull, that the people you trust deserve that trust, but you don't know. Not really. You just believe you operate in knowns because it's the only way to remain sane. Let's go deeper. In physics, Gödel's incompleteness theorems tell us this. Any system of logic strong enough to describe reality will always contain truths that cannot be proven within the system itself. That means no matter how smart we get, how advanced our theories become, there will always be truths we cannot reach, not because we're flawed, but because truth is fundamentally unreachable. It hides behind curtains of logic we cannot pierce. So when you say you know something, you're not claiming certainty, you're claiming comfort. Now let's make it personal. How many beliefs do you know are true because they feel right? Because you've always heard them, because they give you meaning, because your culture repeats them, because questioning them feels like drowning. But what if they're wrong? Worse, what if they're not even wrong, just irrelevant? Built on outdated fears, inherited trauma, cognitive shortcuts. You don't know your own blind spots, because by definition, you can't see them. So here's the spiral. Every time you learn something new, you expand the light, but that also reveals more darkness. The smarter you become, the more lost you feel. The wiser you get, the less confident you are, until eventually, you begin to envy the ignorant, the ones who don't know how much they don't know because at least they sleep. So here's your trap. The mind craves certainty, but certainty is a lie, and uncertainty is a bottomless pit. So you must decide, do you continue shining the light knowing it will never be enough, or do you stop and pretend the dark isn't there, because in the end, the thing that keeps you sane might be the very thing that keeps you blind? The Sorites Paradox. You hold a single grain of sand in your hand. It's not a heap. Add another. Still not a heap. Add another, and another, and another. At what point does it become a heap? That's the paradox. If removing a single grain doesn't destroy the heap, then why does it ever disappear at all? Let's slow this down. This ancient Greek puzzle is deceptively simple, almost laughable. But look closer. It isn't about sand. It's about thresholds, change, identity, death. You weren't always who you are now. But when did the transformation happen? When did you stop being a child? When did love begin? When did it end? When did you start dying? Was it yesterday? Last year? Was it when you stopped dreaming? When you stopped calling? When you stopped hoping? You didn't notice. Because like the grains that change came too slowly to mark. This is the terrifying truth. No single moment defines anything. You never became who you are. You slid into yourself. And maybe that's the deepest horror, because it means you can lose everything. Your purpose, your joy, your sanity, without ever realizing it. One grain, At a time, let's go deeper. Addiction doesn't begin with the needle, it starts with stress. A drink, a distraction, a routine, one grain, then another, until the heap is too large to ignore. But by then, if it owns you, you didn't fall, you drifted. Or consider love. You don't stop loving someone all at once. You stop in pieces. First, you stop laughing. Then you stop noticing. Then the silences grow. Then, one day, you forget the sound of their goodbye. But when exactly did the love die? You can't say, because grief doesn't come with a timer. It comes with echoes, and heaps made of moments you didn't count. Let's go darker. If life is made of choices, and every choice is a grain, then death is not a door, it's a slope. You are dying now, not metaphorically, cell by cell. Thought by thought. Memory by memory. You don't drop dead, you dissolve, the mirror won't show it. But time is adding grains to the heap of your absence. And here's the cruel beauty. You are also becoming grain by grain. You write a sentence. You forgive someone. You show up when you don't want to. These aren't breakthroughs. They're barely noticeable, but they are the construction of a soul. You are not built in grand events, you are piled into existence. So what is a heap? When does enough become everything? When does nothing become too late? When does forgetting become letting go? When does a stranger become you? There is no answer, because the line does not exist. Only the illusion of lines, only the whisper of difference, only the lies we tell ourselves to avoid the slow horror of gradual change. So here's the trap. If no single moment matters, does anything ever matter at all? Or is meaning just the illusion that kept forming while you weren't watching? The paradox of the liar, I am lying. That's it. Just 4 words. But if the statement is true, then it's false. And if it's false, then it must be true. Welcome to the oldest recursive loop in human language. A sentence that cannot be resolved, no matter how long you stare at it. That's the paradox, truth that destroys itself. Let's sit with it. I am lying. If it's true, then the speaker is lying, so the statement is false. But if it's false, then the speaker is not lying, so the statement is true. You're trapped in an infinite loop. Logic eats its own tail. The system collapses. There is no escape, and that should terrify you, because this isn't just wordplay. This is a window into the fragility of reason. Now imagine this paradox infecting everything. Your beliefs, your memories, your identity. How many of the things you tell yourself are self-defeating? I'm worthless. But if you're worthless, why does it matter that you feel that way? No one can be trusted, but can you trust that thought? There's no meaning. But if there's truly no meaning, then why say so? These are liars' loops, not just thoughts, viruses, sentences that snarl up the machine of thought until it chokes. You don't solve them, you drown in them. Now look at your own mind. It narrates your life, doesn't it? That inner voice, the one that says, I'm okay, or no one loves me, or I'll be fine. But who is that voice? And more importantly, can you trust it? Because it talks about you as if it's not you, but it is you, unless it's lying. Here's the nightmare. The brain evolved to detect patterns, even where none exist, to tell stories even if they're false, to survive even if that means lying to itself. I'm in control. They deserved it. It wasn't my fault. This time it'll be different. How many of your truths are just survival mechanisms, comforting lies passed off as philosophy? And the worst part, you might never know, because to know you're lying to yourself, you'd need to trust the part of yourself evaluating the lie. But what if that part is also lying? Language is recursive. It can fold back on itself, refer to itself, break itself, and so can thought. That's what makes consciousness so powerful and so dangerous. We are not just creatures that think, we are creatures that think about thinking, which means we can unravel ourselves, one contradiction at a time. So now look around, in religion, in politics, in identity, in belief. You'll find the liar paradox everywhere. I am the only one who knows the truth. There is no absolute truth. The system is broken, but I can fix it from inside. Everyone lies except me. These aren't statements, they're traps. They are recursive loops meant to hold minds hostage while making them feel free. You've seen people spin in these circles. Maybe you've done it too. Maybe you're doing it now. So here's the real question, not what is true, but can you survive never knowing? Or are you already lost in a lie you told yourself? The paradox of the unaskable question. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What was the color of nothing before the universe began? What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? You've heard these before. They're not riddles, they're not jokes. They are fractures. Questions that cannot be answered, not because the answers are hard, but because the questions themselves are broken. That's the paradox. Some questions destroy themselves in the asking. Let's begin here. We ask questions to know, to define, to tame the unknown. But what happens when the question can't be answered? Because it contains a contradiction? Can God create a rock so heavy he can't lift it? Think about that. No matter how you answer, you strip him of power. If he can't create it, he's limited. If he can create it but can't lift it, he's also limited. So the question traps God himself, not because of logic, because language bends in on itself and snaps. But what if your whole life is built on unaskable questions? Who am I, really? Why am I here? What is the purpose of all of this? They sound profound, but what if they aren't? What if they're grammatical illusions? Sentences shaped like questions but hollow beneath the surface, because they assume things that may not exist, that there is a self, that purpose is a thing to be found, that meaning is waiting like a hidden treasure just beyond the veil. But what if there's nothing? What if the void doesn't answer because it was never listening? Here's a thought. The brain is a pattern engine. It cannot not ask. You seek answers in stars, in dreams, in other people's eyes. But you've forgotten something fundamental. Not all questions deserve answers. Some are recursive traps. Black. Holes of logic. Linguistic viruses disguised as philosophy. The more you ask them, the deeper you fall, not into knowledge but into unreality. Now picture this. A monk sits silently for decades. He is asked, "What is the truth?" He strikes a bell, then says nothing. Is that wisdom or surrender, or does he understand something? Terrifying that some questions are weapons, that the act of asking is what keeps the cage locked. So here's your moment. What are you still asking? Are you looking for certainty, for peace, for the key? Because maybe there is no key. Maybe the question you've been asking your whole life, why do I feel this way? When will it stop? Am I broken? Was never meant to be answered, because maybe you're not broken. Maybe the question is. So here's the trap. The most dangerous questions aren't unanswerable. They're unaskable. And you've been asking them for years. So tell me, what question have you carried all your life and that you're now afraid was never meant to be spoken at all? The paradox of the bottomless pit. Imagine falling down through darkness, no sound, no walls, no end. You fall for seconds, minutes, hours. You scream until your voice is gone. But still, there is no ground. And then it hits you. You will never stop falling. That's the paradox. The absence of an end becomes its own kind of prison. Let's break it open. We are conditioned to believe in resolution. Stories have endings. Journeys have destinations. Questions have answers. Falls will have a bottom. But what if they don't? What if your life is not building toward anything? What if this isn't a rising arc, but a plunge without a floor? You try to orient yourself. You say, I'm getting better. I'm healing. I'm moving forward. But forward toward what? You can't say. You're still falling. Now consider depression. Not sadness, not grief. Depression. It's not the feeling of being stuck. It's the sensation that there is no end to the stuckness. You don't scream because it hurts. You scream because it never stops. Because when you're falling without a bottom, you begin to question gravity itself. You begin to wonder, was I ever standing at all? This isn't just emotional, this is mathematical. In set theory, Russell's paradox showed that certain sets can't exist without contradiction. It shook the foundation of logic. A system built on clean rules and definitions was hiding infinite loops. Bottomless conceptual pits that could not be resolved. Even the purest logic eventually collapses into madness, and yet we keep building on it. Because what else do we have? Let's go deeper. You say, I'll get out of this. But how do you escape a pit with no bottom? There's no surface to push from, no end to aim toward, just a slow, eternal drop into more of the same. Progress becomes illusion. Hope becomes sedative. Motion becomes theater. You feel change, but the landscape never shifts. You fall and fall and fall until even falling feels like standing still. Now here's the twist. You begin to adapt. You build rituals in freefall. You make meaning from descent. You normalize the pit. You say, this is life. You smile in the dark. You stop looking for the bottom, because searching for it only makes the fall feel longer. And that becomes its own trap. Because if there is no end, then there is no point. But if there's no point, then maybe there's freedom. Maybe letting go of the bottom week is the only way to stop fearing it. But can you really let go, or are you just pretending again? So answer this. If you knew there would never be resolution, no climax, no epiphany, no finish line, would you keep going? Or would you finally understand that the fall was never the problem? It was the hope for a landing that broke you. The paradox of silence. Listen. Not to this voice, not to your thoughts, just listen. Do you hear it? The hum behind everything? The emptiness beneath words? The unbearable weight of what isn't being said? That's the paradox. Silence is never empty, because your mind cannot leave it alone. Let's begin with a room. No windows, no sound, you're alone, absolutely alone. And in the stillness, something happens. Your heartbeat becomes thunder. Your breath becomes chaos. Your thoughts become screams. The brain doesn't register silence. It fills it. It can't not. Even in pure anechoic chambers, rooms engineered to eliminate sound, people report hearing blood rush through their veins, joints creak, eyelids scrape. Some can't last more than minutes, because silence is not peace, it is confrontation. Now picture a conversation. A loved one asks, "Do you still care?" You don't respond. Not yes, not no, just nothing. That silence says more than words ever could. It hangs, it bruises, it echoes in ways that language fears. Why? Because silence is not the absence of meaning, it is the collapse of certainty. In music, silence is not nothing, it's called rest. It defines the rhythm, it gives the notes their shape. Without it, sound is noise. So too with thought. Your inner monologue is a song, but silence is the beat that holds it together. Now ask yourself, what have you been refusing to say? What thought hides in the gaps between your sentences? What have you buried under your own noise? Because silence is not passive, it's haunted. Let's go deeper. The philosopher Wittgenstein ended his Tractatus with a chilling line, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." It sounds wise, but it's a trap, because what can't be spoken? Death, God, the self, the end of time. And if those are the things we must be silent about, then silence becomes the container for our deepest fears. We say nothing, not because there's nothing to say, but because what must be said cannot survive language. Now feel the silence in your own life. That moment after an apology that doesn't heal. That pause in the middle of a sentence you never finished. That long night when you stared at the ceiling, too tired to cry. Not empty moments, loud ones. Silence is never quiet. It just speaks a language you've been trying not to learn. So here's the paradox. We fear silence because it reveals what words hide. We chase noise, distraction, stimulation, talk, because silence strips us bare. But what if the truth you've been looking for, the meaning, the clarity, the answer, isn't in a sentence but in the pause, the gap, the breath before the breakdown? So now tell me, when you finally stop speaking, when there's nothing left to ask, explain, or remember, what does your silence say about you? The paradox of the dreamer. You wake up in your bed. The sun cuts through the curtains. You remember your name, your plans, your life. You think, just a strange dream. But what if this is the dream, and the dream was the moment you almost woke up? That's the paradox. You can never be sure if you're dreaming because every dream believes itself real. Let's begin with your last dream. Maybe it was bizarre, flying, falling, speaking with the dead. Maybe it was mundane, your home, your phone, your morning coffee, but in it you never questioned it. Not until it broke. Not until the sky melted or the logic slipped. Then you realized, oh, I'm dreaming. But even that realization could be part of the dream. You never know you're asleep until something wakes you. But what if there is no waking? In 1637, René Descartes asked, "How can I know I'm not dreaming right now?" His answer was famously flawed. I think, therefore I am. But dreams have thoughts. Dreams feel real. Dreams have consequences that echo into waking. You've felt it, the anxiety, the grief, the love that carried over. So where is the line? What is reality if every experience feels real while it happens? Let's test it. Right now, look around. Everything seems consistent. Your body, your room, the words you're reading. But a dream is a simulation built from memory, meaning you can't notice what's missing, because it was never there to notice. Maybe the corners of your room never quite meet. Maybe the floor behind you is undefined. Maybe the time you've spent reading this is warped. But your brain smooths over the seams, just like it does in dreams. Let's make it darker. What if your entire life is a nested dream, one layer inside another? Each time you die, you wake into a new version. Each time you grieve, you cross into another layer. You never actually leave. You just shift, like doors in a hallway that never ends. Now consider the brain. When dreaming, the prefrontal cortex, the logic center, goes dim. The emotional centers stay lit. You believe anything. You forgive contradiction. You accept the impossible. But isn't that what we do all the time? Believe in justice while watching chaos. Believe in order while living in entropy. Believe in permanence while knowing we will die. Is this not just a dream answered with better texture? So ask yourself, what proof do you have that this is real? Your senses, your memories, your emotions, all of those can be simulated in dreams, in hallucinations, in virtual spaces. Your body can be fooled, your mind can be rewritten, and still you'd swear it was real, because real is just what feels consistent. But what if you've only ever been asleep? And here's the quiet horror. Even if you woke up now, how would you know? The dreamer dreams they're awake. The sleeper never suspects, because the most convincing dream is the one where you never question. You're dreaming at all, so tell me, if this is a dream, who's the one dreaming you? The paradox of the mirror. You stare into a mirror. There you are. Same face, same eyes, same tired weight in the shoulders. But stare long enough, and you begin to wonder, is that me? Because mirrors don't just reflect appearances. They reflect existence, and that's the paradox. The more you try to see yourself, the more you realize there's no one there. Let's begin with the illusion. The mirror shows what you expect. A face, a posture, an expression. But it cannot show your thoughts, your doubts, your contradictions. It cannot show you only the surface tension of what you pretend to be. A costume stitched from expectation, a simulation trained to act real, a reflection rehearsed so long you've forgotten it was ever a performance. Now go deeper. What if the mirror was not showing you, but watching you? What if it never reflected? What if it remembered every glance, every lie you whispered to yourself, every time you rehearsed a smile for someone else, every time you stood there asking silently, do I look like someone worth believing in? Psychologists speak of the mirror test, a measure of self-awareness in animals. If a being can recognize itself in a reflection, it shows consciousness. But here's the twist. Some beings pass, others don't. But neither can tell you what they are. They just react. Recognition is not identity. Just because you see yourself doesn't mean you understand yourself. Now ask yourself this. The face in the mirror, was it always yours? Go back 10 years, 20, a childhood face, a teenage mask, a broken adult. They all look back from the same place. But are they still inside you, or were they erased grain by time, trauma, routine? You see eyes, but not sight. You see a mouth, but not truth. You see the shell, but not the ghost. And then the questions begin. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you don't perform? Who are you when not even you are convinced? A mirror cannot lie, but it also cannot know. It shows you the outline, never the essence. And you stare, trying to find meaning in symmetry, trying to recognize a soul that might never have been yours. And here's the most unsettling thought. What if the mirror is the real one, and you are the reflection? What if the image is permanent and the viewer is what flickers? What if the person staring is the dream, and the echo in the glass is the only one who remembers? You adjust your posture, you pretend composure, but inside, you've forgotten who you are. You've become a mimic of yourself, a portrait, painted too many times, until even the brush forgot what it was copying. So here's the final image. You stand in front of the mirror, and you do not blink, because you are waiting not for reflection but for recognition. You want the mirror to say something, to admit something, to forgive something, but it never will, because it cannot speak. And even if it could, it wouldn't speak to you, because it doesn't know who that is. The paradox of the infinite room. You walk into a room, it's quiet, plain, empty. You take a breath, you walk across, you reach the opposite wall. But when you turn around, the door is gone. No windows, no seams, just more room. You run. The floor keeps extending. The walls retreat, you scream, no echo, and then it hits you. The room grows with you. The more you try to escape, the larger it becomes. That's the paradox. Some prisons grow stronger with every attempt to leave. Let's sit in it. You feel trapped in life, so you make a plan. A new job, a new identity, a new belief system. You call it reinvention. But after a while, the same feeling returns. The dread, the futility, the shadow. So you pivot again. Another city, another lover, another ritual, but the walls are still there. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the room moves with you. Now think about the mind, your fears, your patterns, your anxieties. You try to outgrow them. You chase self-help, enlightenment, psychedelics, mantras. You believe you've evolved, but the more complex your thoughts become, the more complex your traps become. The room isn't defeated. It simply reshapes itself to your new understanding. It gives you the illusion of freedom. It lets you walk further. It decorates its walls with new symbols, new philosophies. But it is still the room. You are still inside it because you are building it. This is how trauma works. You escape the event, but the shape of it lingers. You carry it like scaffolding. Every relationship is filtered through it. Every success is shadowed by it. You think you've left the room, but the room has followed you inside. You see, not all prisons have walls. Some are made of memory, of identity, of expectation, and they grow more sophisticated as you do. Until one day you stop trying to leave. You decorate the cell, call it home, call it me, call it, this is just how life is. And maybe it is, but only because the room is now infinite, and infinity feels suspiciously like freedom. Let's twist the blade. If the room grows, the more you try to escape, then maybe escape is the wrong instinct. Maybe the only way out is to stop walking, to sit, to stare at the endless floor, to ask, what if there's no door? Because I never needed one. Or maybe there never was a room, only you, running, alone, in circles. Inside the most sophisticated illusion ever built, a mind pretending to seek liberation from the very architecture it refuses to dismantle. So here's the trap. If the room has no walls, who built it? And if the door never existed, what were you trying to escape all along? The paradox of being watched. You feel it, don't you? That subtle tension, the invisible weight on the back of your neck, the sense that someone, something, is observing you, even when you're alone, especially when you're alone. That's the paradox. Even When no one is watching, you feel watched. And even when everyone is watching, you feel unseen. Let's begin in your room. Doors locked, curtains drawn, no cameras, no people. And yet, you hesitate before doing certain things. You censor your thoughts. You filter your behavior. You perform for an imaginary audience. Who are they? Parents? God? Society? A version of yourself you're afraid to disappoint, or is it worse? Maybe there is no observer, just your mind, splitting in two, the actor and the judge. Now step outside, into the street, into the digital world, cameras on every corner, metadata tracking your steps, social feeds reflecting your face back to you in curated fragments. You scream into the void, "Look at me." But the more people see you, the more invisible you feel, because visibility is not the same as being witnessed. Likes are not love, views are not validation, followers are not eyes that truly see you, and yet you keep performing. Why? Because being watched, even falsely, feels more real than not being seen at all. So you create an identity, not to live in, but to be perceived. This is how surveillance culture works, not by force, but by slowly teaching you to internalize the gaze. You become your own warden, your own watcher, your own judge. You don't need to be watched anymore, because you're watching yourself endlessly. Now go deeper. Ancient myths spoke of gods that saw everything. Modern science offers no gods. But the fear remains, because deep down maybe we need to be watched, not to control us, but to prove we exist. A gaze gives us shape. Without it, we're just smoke, flickers, dreams untethered. What is a thought that no one witnesses? What is a life that no one remembers? So here's the trap. We fear being seen. But we fear not being seen even more, and we live our lives between those two shadows, performing, hiding, longing, never knowing which is worse, to be watched forever, or to scream into eternity and hear no reply. So tell me, if you close your eyes tonight and still feel someone watching, are you haunted by something outside you, or something you've created to never be alone? The paradox of solipsism. You wake up one day and ask, how do I know anyone else is real? The people you love, the world outside your skull. The sound of these words, unfolding right now. All of it. Data, patterns, impressions. But is it real, or is it a simulation constructed by your own consciousness to keep you company? That's the paradox. You can never prove that anyone exists but you, and you can't even prove you exist. Let's explore the first wound. What if everyone else is an illusion? Your parents, your friends, the strangers on the street, the voice. Reading this now, they move, respond, seem conscious. But so do characters in your dreams. So do puppets with clever programming. So does the wind, if you believe hard enough. You assume others have inner lives like you. But you've never seen them. You've never felt their awareness. Only their performance of awareness, and that performance could be part of your dream. Now the second wound. What if you aren't real? You think, you feel. But thoughts can be glitches. Feelings can be simulations. Consciousness could be a loop of electrical impulses. An illusion so convincing it thinks it's real, just like a dream does, just like you might be doing. Now, this is solipsism, the belief that only your own mind is certain to exist. It is not madness, it is not philosophy. It is a silent virus that infects the soul, because once you begin to doubt the world, everything becomes suspect. Every voice, every face, every "I love you." You ask, do they mean it? Then you ask, are they real enough to mean anything at all? Now here's where it spirals. The more you feel isolated, the more solipsism seems true, and the more you believe it, the more you become isolated. Until eventually, you begin to create the illusion of others, just to stay sane. You build imaginary audiences. You argue with internal versions of people. You write to yourself, you write this just to hear an echo, even if it's your own. And here's the darkest twist. What if the fear of solipsism is the strongest evidence that it's true? Because why would a real universe need to reassure you of its existence? Why would love need to be proven? Why would you need to ask unless there's no one else to ask? So now look around, this room, this moment, this voice, all of it feels external. But can you touch it? Can you prove it? Or is it simply convenient, like a dream built to soothe you, to distract you, to keep you from staring directly into the void of only you? So tell me, dreamer, if I'm not real, if none of this is, then who wrote these words? Who is answering? If you're the only one. Here, the paradox of meaning, you ask, what is the meaning of life? It's the oldest question. The first flame lit in the dark, the one whispered by children, monks, and dying men. But the moment you try to answer it, the moment you define it, something breaks. That's the paradox. The search for meaning gives life purpose, but finding it risks taking that purpose away. Let's begin in innocence. You believe life has meaning. Maybe it's love, or progress, or divinity, or growth. You construct a purpose, you wrap your identity around it, you fight for it, and in that fight, you feel real. But if one day, the meaning reveals itself, and it's simple, cold, indifferent, you don't feel fulfilled, you feel empty, because the search was your anchor, not the answer. Now consider nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning. To many, it's terrifying, but to some, it's freeing, because if nothing matters, then everything is possible. You are no longer bound by scripts or fate. You become the writer. But even that freedom can collapse on itself, because if meaning is something you can simply invent, then is it real or just decoration? We're trapped between two voids, the terror that nothing has meaning, and the disappointment. That meaning once found might not be enough. You search for it in work, in relationships, in rituals, in pain, in joy, but the more aware you become, the more fragile your meanings feel. A parent dies and your belief in fairness shatters. A war breaks out and your idea of goodness crumbles. A prayer goes unanswered, and faith frays at the edge. Your meanings don't break all at once. They erode grain by grain, until the core is exposed and it's you alone asking again. Then, what now? Let's twist it deeper. If life had absolute meaning, it would become a system, predictable, mathematical. There would be no freedom in it. You wouldn't live, you'd execute. So maybe the only reason meaning matters is because it's undefined. Maybe it's a question not meant to be answered, but held, like a candle in the wind, like a name you can never fully pronounce. Now ask yourself, why are you here? Not here reading this, here, alive, breathing, thinking, enduring. You have your reasons, but are they truly yours or borrowed, inherited, injected? Can you even tell the difference? Or have you just accepted the first answer that felt good enough to keep going? And here's the final twist. What if the meaning of life was to ask what the meaning of life is? Endlessly, pointlessly, beautifully. A loop, not to solve that, but to live inside. So tell me, if you found the truth, but it erased your purpose, would you still want to know it? Or is meaning only sacred because we never quite catch it? The paradox of the twin: you meet someone. They speak like you, think like you, laugh at the same things, you dig deeper. Their memories mirror yours, their traumas match, their dreams are identical, and then one day they ask, what if I'm you, and you're the copy? You laugh but you don't answer because suddenly you're not sure. That's the paradox. If two things are perfectly identical, what makes either one the real one? Let's begin with the impossible. Two entities indistinguishable in every measurable way. Same memories, same reactions, same preferences, even the same doubt. If you swapped them, would anything change? Would you even notice? And if not, what makes one more you than the other? Science fiction loves this trap. Teleportation devices that create perfect duplicates, clone scenarios with full memory transfer, AI minds that replicate human consciousness. They all ask the same question. If the copy is perfect, does the original matter? But let's bring it closer to home. Every second your cells die and renew. Every thought you have rewires your brain. Every night you dissolve into dreams and wake up rebuilt. So tell me, are you the same person you were yesterday, last year, 10 years ago? If not, when did you die and who woke up in your place? Let's go darker. Now imagine you meet your perfect twin, not biological, philosophical. A person shaped by the exact same causes, effects, decisions, indistinguishable from you in every single way. You shake their hand, and in that moment, a question is born. If we're the same, and why are there two of us, you can't answer, because logic has no room for uniqueness without difference. So one of you must be fake, but neither of you can prove it, because everything you use to define yourself, your past, your memories, your pain, they share it too. So what now? Kill the twin, or admit that you might be the copy? Here's the recursive horror. You already are a copy. You are a copy of your parents' traits, your culture's values, your environment's beliefs. You are assembled, curated, scripted, just like your twin. So maybe you've never been original. Maybe there is no such thing. And yet, you feel real, you feel unique, you feel like a self, but that's the illusion. Because identity is not proof of authenticity. It's just a convincing story told in the first person. So here's your trap. If a perfect copy of you exists, and both of you think you're you, then who owns your life? Who gets your dreams? Who suffers for your mistakes? Who loves the people you love? Or was the you defend never real to begin with? So tell me, if someone out there is you, then who are you to say you're not them? The paradox of the voice in your head. There it is. Reading these words right now, not with your mouth, not aloud, but with that inner narrator. You know it, you trust it, you call it me. But what if it isn't? What if that voice isn't yours? That's the paradox. You listen to a voice inside you, but you have no idea where it comes from. Let's begin in silence. Not external silence, but the quiet within. Do you ever notice the running commentary? The one that names what you see, judges what you feel, narrates your day like an invisible radio host. That voice, that constant whisper. It says, I'm tired. This is boring. I shouldn't have said that. They don't really love me. But here's the question, who is it speaking to? If you are the voice, then who's the listener? If you are the listener, then who's the one talking? Some call it the ego, others the subconscious. Cognitive science calls it the default mode network. But whatever you call it, it talks constantly, and you trust it. Even when it lies, even when it loops, even when it hurts you. Why? Because it sounds like you. But does that make it true? Here's a disturbing experiment. Say the phrase, I am worthless. Now say it again, then again, 10 times. Eventually it starts to sound real, not because it's true, but because the voice sounds like you. It bypasses your logic. It slips under your defenses. It speaks in your accent, with your tone, in your rhythms. But what if it's just noise, an echo formed by trauma, culture, and memory? A loop that keeps playing because no one ever reached in and pressed stop. Now consider this. If a voice outside of you said the things your inner voice says, you'll never be good enough. Everyone will leave. You don't matter. Would you accept it, or would you call it abuse? So why do you tolerate it from yourself? Why do you confuse familiarity with truth? Because somewhere along the way, you stopped questioning the narrator. And here's where it spirals. That voice pretends to be you, but it isn't always on your side. Sometimes it's your greatest enemy. Sometimes it speaks in the voice of a parent, a bully, a fear, a regret. Sometimes it talks to fill the silence. Because silence threatens to reveal that you don't really know who you are without it. You don't know who you are without the noise. So now ask yourself, what would happen if the voice went silent, not for a second, forever? Would you feel peace or terror? Would you finally hear yourself, or would you disappear entirely? Because here's the truth. The voice is not you, and it never was. It's just a narrator in a crumbling theater, reading a script that someone else wrote. So tell me, if you stop believing the voice, what's left of you? The paradox of waking up. You open your eyes. You feel your body. You check the time, read the news, sip your coffee. You say, I'm awake. But what if you aren't? What if this, right now, is just another layer of sleep, and everything you've ever called waking up was just slipping into a slightly less convincing dream? That's the paradox. You cannot prove you're awake because dreaming feels real until it doesn't. Let's begin in a nightmare. You run, you scream, you feel your heart race, you taste blood, you feel death approaching. And then, suddenly, you jolt upright, safe, relieved. You say, it was just a dream. But think, in the dream you never knew it wasn't real, not until you left it. So now ask, what if this moment, this world, this self, this fear, is still the dream, and you haven't woken up yet? Lucid dreaming teaches us that awareness inside. A dream can feel like waking up, but even lucid dreams can be nested inside deeper dreams. People have reported waking up 5, 6, 7 times in a row, only to realize again and again and again they were still dreaming. And now you're here, reading this, thinking, surely this is real, but that's exactly what the last version of you thought. So what makes this different? Let's test it. Try to remember how you got here. Not what you were doing 5 minutes ago, but how this moment began. This exact second. This word. This breath. Where did it come from? Can you trace it, or does it feel dropped in, like a scene that simply started? Dreams don't begin at the beginning. They begin in the middle and convince you that everything before made sense. Just like this. Just like now. Neuroscientists still don't fully understand consciousness. What triggers it? What holds it? What wakes it? We know only this. Sleep is not the absence of consciousness. It is a different mode of it, and sometimes that mode is deeper, more vivid, more convincing. So why are you so sure this isn't one of those times? Why are you so sure you're not still asleep? Here's the chilling truth. You don't wake up once in your life. You wake up in layers. Through grief, through trauma, through realization, through loss, through love, through silence, and every time you say, now I see. But what if you're always wrong? What if you're still asleep, not in bed, but in your beliefs, in your certainty, in your identity, in yourself? And true waking is something you've never truly touched, something too raw, too real, so your mind keeps dreaming, because it's safer here. So tell me, if the only way to really wake up is to lose everything that feels like you, would you want to open your eyes? The paradox of eternal return. Imagine this. You die, and in the next instant, you're born again. Same life, same people, same thoughts, same mistakes. Not reincarnation, not karma, just repetition. You live your life again and again and again, forever and. You don't remember. That's the paradox. If you live the same life infinitely, but never remember it, is it any different than living it once? Let's begin with Nietzsche. He called it eternal recurrence, not a metaphor, not a myth, a question. Would you live your exact life again, every moment, every mistake, every pain, if it meant living it forever? It's not a punishment. It's not salvation. It's a mirror, and the answer tells you everything about what your life has become. But let's step into the horror. You've lived this moment before. Reading these words, feeling this unease, and in some forgotten iteration. So of existence, you said yes and went deeper, again just like now. So tell me, is this déjà vu or is it recognition? Quantum cosmology hints at it. If the universe is infinite, then identical configurations of particles must eventually repeat, somewhere, somehow. Another you is reading these same words, not metaphorically, literally. Same choices, same fears, same trap. Now go deeper. You think you make decisions. You believe in growth, evolution, change. But what if the loop is so perfect, so exact, that even your rebellion is part of it? That every time you tried to escape this fate was just another line in the script? What if your moment of awakening has happened 1,000 times and always ends here? Reading this, thinking this, falling into this. And if that's true, then this moment is both terrifying and sacred, because it is not your first chance, it's your eternal one. You don't just get one life, you get one life forever. One loop, one story, one sentence you keep trying to finish, but always forget how. It ends, so what now? You can pretend it's new, you can scream, you can accept it, but the loop doesn't care because the loop doesn't break, it is you. So here's the final question. If you've done this all before, and you're doing it again now, will you finally choose differently? Or is that choice part of the loop too? The final paradox, escaping the trap. You've made it here. After loops, mirrors, voices, false awakenings, and truths too unstable to hold, you stand at the edge and ask, how do I escape? But the question is the final trap, because that's the paradox. To want to escape is to still believe there's something outside the trap. Let's slow this down. You've questioned everything: time, identity, meaning, reality. You've broken the mirrors, unraveled the voice, fell through the dream, watched yourself disintegrate. You've reached the bottom, but there is no floor. Just you, and the awareness that you are not escaping the trap. You are the trap. Every paradox led you deeper. Each one promised clarity, only to infect you with a deeper confusion. Why? Because the mind cannot solve itself. The knife cannot cut itself. The eye cannot see itself. The self cannot escape the self. You searched for truth. But truth was a disguise. What you were really searching for was permission. Permission to stop. Permission to let go. Permission to disappear without dying, and now you see it. There is no exit because there was no entrance. This, all of this, has always been inside you. There is no you walking the maze. You are the maze, the looping thoughts, the recursive fears, the story pretending to be a person. There is no reader, no voice, no mirror, no self, only awareness, unlocated, unlabeled, unbearably naked. You wanted freedom, but freedom means nothing if you don't know what to do with it. So instead, you chose the trap, over and over, because the trap gave you identity. The trap gave you purpose. The trap gave you narrative. And now in this final paradox, you face the final question. If you let go of everything, what's left? No answer comes. Just silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence that comes after meaning dies. The silence that isn't empty but free. So you tell me, are you ready to leave, or have you just discovered there was never anything here but you, asking the question again and again? And now that you see the trap, will you walk it again or finally vanish into the silence? End of descent, you may now awaken or spiral again.